Welcome to the ET Stand, the Cronulla Sharks fan podcast. You idiots, I'm just laughing at these clowns just trying to make faces at me in the background. On this episode of the ET Stand podcast, we are going to work out why, stop it, you idiots. We're going to try and work out what a dynasty is and if the Cronulla Sharks can ever build one of their own. We're just not content with one premier. These idiots in the background, I'm going to stop them from pulling faces at me. Let's just bring them in. That is Boldo's Tears. Chris Kelly, who would you move?
Where do we start? I'm glad Boldo didn't grow up in Egypt times because that's a terrible looking pyramid. It would have fallen over and collapsed by now. And given that he just Googled the squad and put Matt Ikuvalu in the bottom and he hasn't been there since half of last year, our pyramid would have fallen over.
He's still on the page.
The pyramid would have fallen over. You would have been missing a foundation piece and it's fallen over.
Maloney is still intercept. Away goes James Maloney. They're kicking him home, the Sharks fans. Maloney is there. Healy. It's Healy has scored on his departure day. Mitch Healy gets a try. The crowd have gone absolutely bereft.
In amongst all of that, Latz had an awesome story about how awesome this Finau guy was, and then Boldo concludes it with like, yeah, Finucane, how good is he? And everyone's like,
I don't even know who Finau is. I just assumed that Finau was the same guy as Finucane. Is that a different person? I didn't know that. Who the hell's Finau?
Wow.
This is how flawed the tears are. He doesn't even know half the team.
Boldo.
This is where the tears bit comes into it.
I'm listening to the car going, did my stream just like skip 30 seconds or something? Like, no, it was just Boldo just playing along. But anyway.
Peachy, great ball to Campbell. He's away.
Campbell to the 30-metre line. Now, Colin Best heading to the corner. Gets it back on the inside. Graham. They're over. Nick Graham has scored. 4 minutes into the game. Ennis away. Here they are. Pryor. Can he get it there? Yes, he can. Matt Pryor, an unlikely first try scorer for the Sharks.
Interesting enough that the North Bears are getting that desperate. They're talking about having a Pacific Bears team so they can sort of engulf those Pacific nations and sort of get that ball rolling where they think they can sort of, take on the Cook Islands and the Samoans and the Tongas and sort of make it their team. So PNG's to go for me.
I'm pretty convinced after that. All right, Franko, what do you got?
Mate, can I rebuttal that, or am I giving it a different answer?
Go for it. Enough arguments on this podcast. Come on,
you're going to throw out cans, and they're going to play out of cans.
Ever. That is the dumbest idea ever.
Townsend now calling the shots with Johnson off. They will go. Gallen, field goal. Paul Gallen, field goal. That is amazing. That is ridiculous. Away. It's back to Smith. Smith gets it away to Cronk. Cronk's got Korobetti with it. Have they got a chance here? Korobetti's put down. The siren sounds. Cronulla have won it. Cronulla have won it. 14 to 12. You can turn the light out now.
For over 50 years, people have come to see the Sharks play. Talent, skill, speed, intelligence, elite level athleticism. That's not these guys. Biased, one-eyed, opinionated, more often wrong than right. They make up for their complete lack of talent with pure dribble, gibberish, and enthusiasm. This is the ET Stand Podcast.
Well, it might not have been convincing, but welcome back to the winner's circle, Shark fans. We are well and truly in the end of season run. 5 matches to fine-tune and get things right for the finals, and 1 more win to lock them in. Welcome to the ET Stand, the Sharks fans podcast where we let our talking do the football. Our illustrious host is having a well-earned rest, so you're all stuck with me as host, though maybe some of you missed me since I wasn't available for the Souths debrief. Though likely not. However, I'll do my best to keep things entertaining, which shouldn't be hard. We have a couple of hot button topics to discuss. Since Boldo ran the debrief solo, we're going to get the panelists' impression of the Souths match. Lats runs us through the socials. We go through what, if anything, we're learning from the injury crisis. We preview the Titans match. CK gives us his league roundup. There's a bit of show and tell with Williams. And as always, plenty of shenanigans from our listeners and commenters. Speaking of, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you're new, or if you're not and haven't done so yet, get to it. Spotify listeners, you're welcome to follow and rate the pod as well. Leave us a comment, and if there's any other platform you'd like to see or hear us on, let us know, and we will see what we can do. So, who's keeping the ship afloat with me this week? We have Williams, the walking encyclopedia, Lats, the walking crystal ball, and CK, the walking billboard. So, let's go, guys. How are we feeling? Have we had a good time? We missed out. None of us were on the debrief. We sort of did our own little thing, and we've come back to this where Boldo, once again, when he's not hosting, mucks up the side panel of what's when. So we're going to skip the socials. We're going to jump straight to the Souths match and have a bit of a chat about that. The past weekend, we saw the boys get up over the Bunnies, 20 points to 6 in what was an error-riddled affair. 16 errors, 72% completion rate, 7 penalties. We were better in the second half, but that's probably a statement we could use for most of the games this season. Lats, mate, would we have found the juice to win against a better side, or were we lucky to come up against the hapless Bunnies?
Mate, we were very lucky. And I was a little bit concerned there at the start, to be honest. I was a little bit worried when they edged ahead at the start there. But look, we needed the win. We'll take it. It was not pretty. It was not clinical. It was a bit sloppy, a bit clunky. But as I said, we needed it. Hopefully it'll point us in the right direction. And happy to get the 2 points on that one. And I've got plenty of Souths friends. And I was very happy to give it to all of them.
Fair enough. Williams, what did we do right? Anything?
Second half. Second half was a lot more right than the very wrong first half. Lucky I didn't watch the first half live. I was at a kid's birthday party and was just seeing score updates and bits and pieces and seeing us down 4-0 and going, what's going on? And then had a quick look and saw the completion rate. And I'm like, good God. Watched the second half on the Sunday morning and I'm glad I was, well, maybe it wasn't a good thing sober for it. But yeah, so second half, Trindle took control. The guys held the ball and yeah, I think showed that we've got the ability to play, but the injuries are a concern.
Yeah, CK, ignoring injuries, do you think we can fix it up before the finals?
Ignoring injuries, geez, we looked as clunky as my stream does at the moment, but it just, like, I don't know if we can fix it. The one shining light was probably it's going to upset a lot of our viewers and listeners is that Talakai came on and played at centre and absolutely trucked one of the South players and set up a beautiful soft hands try down the wing. So I don't know. Looking at the team list, which we'll preview later on, it's dire straight. So I wouldn't be putting any bets on this week on Sharks getting up, but I don't know if it's ready to fix because there's a lot of problems. We spruiked about how much depth we have, but there's a lot of holes to fill this week at the moment.
Rudolph had a bit of a good game. Were there any other standout performances in your mind there, Lats?
Look, I thought Tricky was pretty good until he got injured. It was unfortunate that he did. I don't know. I thought Talakai was good when he came on. That great little try, as Chris mentioned, down the left-hand edge there. And look, Iro, plenty of meters out of him. I think he ran for over 200 and something meters. So, yeah, there were some good signs, but all in all, it was pretty clunky.
Yeah, I think so. Stone Street could have had a hat trick, but ended up with one and a head knock. How do you think he went, Williams?
He got badgered.
Horror start. He got badgered, but watching the first half the next day, gosh, it was a horror start from him with that, 2 early lost balls. I know he copped a bit of stick from some, yourself included, Lats, saying you didn't rate him too highly. I thought he did a job in the second half. Disappointing that I suppose he made the choice with that try. He left it open to the bunker interpretation. I don't know if we'll talk about it in another segment, I suppose, where the Annesley actually addressed that. But that was a try for all money. But he should have grounded it a different way, probably with 2 hands. He had time. The other one was definitely an obstruction, and then finally third time lucky. So I think he did a job. He's no Mulatalo. 2 errors in there, not the same brain farts that Mulatalo had the week before either, even with those errors. But I think he'll do a job. I know it's another topic we're going to talk about. I'm disagreeing with Boldo with that Iro is suddenly an out-and-out winner after 1 run down the western touchline. 1 run does not make a winger. So, yeah, Iro can stay in the centres. We have other wing options. Thank you.
Absolutely. And CK, the brains of the outfit. Was there anything you wanted to add about that Souths match that the common man missed?
I think that, we'll go into a few bunker mistakes over the weekend and things like that. And I had to calm young Zach down, who was sitting next to me and just yelling expletives at the ref the whole game, and said, well, you're sort of flogging a dead horse there, mate. Like, we're not going to get any calls tonight. But I suppose the biggest and most confusing thing, and sitting that close to the independent doctor and the NRL guys, is watching the assessments of HIAs. And we saw Stone Street go off for a HIA after scoring a try in the corner there where he sort of got cleaned up and not really hitting the head. We saw Ramian stay down for a penalty, which was fair enough, and the referee missed, but I could see from my seat advantage, a good 60 metres away, and I don't know how he missed it. It was directly in front of us. And he went directly for a HIA, but somehow South's fullback, young Gray, went down and sort of, did his old soccer play, went to his knees, get the bunker to have a look, and never once left the field. So that was my sort of gripe out of there. If you're going to stay down for a high shot and a slash penalty, which I'll get into the league roundup of how shocking it was over the weekend, but I just sent more confusion around the ground again. But yeah, who knows? It was an ugly game. It was cold. It was a standard Sharks out there, and I just wanted to go home with 2 points and a bit of warmth.
I was puzzled with many things, but the fact that Ramian was more of a crusher, pressure on the neck, that's not okay. The head was touched, but the head injuries don't occur in that way. Yet Gray's one, it was a high shot. If it was a high shot, that's surely blunt force to the head, so therefore equals time in the HIA. So just baffling.
Yeah, Ramian's one was a bit confusing. It wasn't a sin bin for it because the South player actually come in from behind with a shoulder to the back of the head and neck area. So there was no wrapping arm, and just sort of went in there with a driving shoulder. And I thought that was quite strange for, in this day and age, a player to stay on the field for, 10 minutes, but we'll see.
Warren Smith said the same thing in commentary. So it was very surprising, or very lucky that player stayed on the field. I thought
the Stone Street one he was lucky to come back because the commentators missed it. And, listening to the debrief, Williams 2.0 and Boldo missed it, but he hit his head pretty hard in scoring that try, so much so he couldn't stand up. The guys then helped him. He was then caught by another player because he was stumbling. There was a moment there where he was really shaking the cobwebs out of his head, and all of those are the symptoms that are normally like, yep, gone, sorry, don't come back. So how the independent doctor missed that, CK, like you were saying, that was a bit of a weird one.
Yeah, I kind of brought it up to one of the other Williams who was sitting at the grounds. We've got that many Williams going around on this podcast these days. But the strange part is when the HIA actually gets called. So the one for Stone Street was we're about to have a dropout, and then we're on our own touchline, and he got called. So there was a bit of a stoppage in play, and at least he went off, and he was kind of blowing up and remonstrating, didn't want to go. But the Ramian one they called, it was actually, we had a bit of a roll, and it was on the 5th tackle that the referee stopped the game, said he had to go, and then from a standing start, we had to kick the ball. Like, they could have waited for us to kick the ball, South to take a hit up, and then call Ramian off the field. Like, it was just bizarre timing the way they do it. Like, it's, yeah, I know we don't get as many stoppages these days, but I think, we're on the 40-metre line on a 5th tackle option, and all of a sudden, stop the game, hang on, Ramian, you got to go. And then we were just standing still trying to put up a silly little bomb. So I think it's something else they need to look at, is when the player actually goes off.
Yeah, this is true. We've got a couple of comments here. Williams 2.0 says he's a firm belief that Fitzy walked under a ladder, probably around the same time that Boldo started talking about streaks. We've got Crew Hobart that says he thinks the Sharks will lose. So, yep, we'll get to that.
Positives.
Sonia says Stone Street got badgered, echoing yourself there, lads. William C 2.0 comes back and says CK back in the days of 3G with his connection. Well, just quietly, I think Lats was struggling a little bit there too earlier on. And then Mike Knight comes in with Bumblebee Tuna. He's not late and maybe can't stay. Well, if you're late, you stay, and if you're early, you're gone. So fair enough. He thought the ref decisions lent South's favour at first, but then became reasonable. Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to talk about refs, but I thought the reffing game in general was pretty poor. But, that's just me. I think there was a few ways that some of those rules could have been interpreted, and I thought it was a bit stop-start as well. So anyway, that was that. Anything anyone else wants to add into the pot before we move on?
Yeah, it was probably that one that you're saying weird calls. There was another one, but it was a 6 again, and the South player was fighting for yardage. His legs were still moving. They were sort of wrestling the ball together, and all of a sudden he just called 6 again. Was another bizarre one that was out there. But shout out to whoever does the video replays at Sharks, because I couldn't even see one replay of the obstruction, and then I think it was the Stone Street try. We went to have one look at it, and the screen went off back to their sponsor. So maybe, guys, we can have a few looks at it ourselves and make a decision.
That's criminal.
Yeah, I think it was one of those ones that, the purists of the game would say common sense should allow that try, but to the letter of the law, took out a defender, broke the chain of defence, and was disallowed. I didn't think we
travelled that far, and all of a sudden the penalty was on the 35 near 40-metre line, and I was confused about that. So I was waiting for a replay, and they just didn't show it to see where the obstruction was, because I thought it was on the 20, and all of a sudden the ref's marking the place out at 35 metres. So bizarre.
Yeah. Mike Knight kicks in and he says, because all humans are broken, we unfortunately will always have issues with refereeing, HIA, politics, etc. Not half
true.
Wrong. We could probably just throw sport in there as well, Mike Knight. But yeah, like I said, don't like to dwell on the refs too much. It wasn't really a standout game from them, but it also wasn't a terrible game either. So, but speaking of, I suspect there might be a little bit on it in what I thought was a fairly eventful week. What came out of the socials this week, Lats?
Mate, fans have been growing quite concerned over the last few days in the socials around halfback Braden Trindle and that hamstring injury picked up in our win over South, especially given his form how he's been of late after coming back from being stood down. He's really started to finally get into his groove in games. He's been huge with a boot, and Sharkies fans are concerned our kicking game will be considerably less effective in his absence. In saying that, Atco pulled off the impossible in Melbourne after Nicho going down injured in the captain's run. And I think we're going to be okay if we stick to a similar game plan, which after today's team list drop looks like the direction we'll be going in. So get better soon, Tricky. Moving on, a very good mate of mine messaged me Wish messaged me after that Stone Street try that was ridiculously bunkered, disallowed by Casey Badger in our win over South, asking me how was Casey allowed to officiate South games in any capacity, given a husband and an ex-NRL referee, Gavin Badger, being a consultant for the Rabbitohs. I was actually unaware of Gavin's tenure with the Rabbitohs, with the Bunnies, which I jumped online and had a look at and confirmed it. However, last night news broke of the NRL banning Casey from working South Sydney matches going forward. During Saturday night's match where Casey was in charge of the bunker, her husband Gavin could be seen in the South's coaching box assisting Ben Hornby throughout the match. Look, boys, it's not a good look, and I'm surprised it got as far as it did without any intervention from the NRL. But
this is the first time I've heard of the NRL making a stance on this. I know in the Premier League, referees have to declare any previous allegiance they may have had with a team, and then they are not allowed to have any involvement with those matches, period. I think that's all tiers of English football, English soccer. So you see all kinds of links like this. It should make you'd say it should make an impact. I don't think it did. I think, unfortunately, I'm going to slightly defend Casey here in that it's over-analysis. It's kind of looking for the reason to take the try away. Was that try sent up no try? I think from memory it had been.
I thought it was sent up as try, but you're right. There was a lot of no tries being sent up, so it was probably a no try.
Yeah, if it was set up as a no try, I suppose they're trying to support the on-field decision of no try, so they're looking for anything, and that was technically
the obstruction one was, but not the put down one.
Okay, the put down one was set up as a try. Okay, that's.
I mean,
yeah.
The way she talked through the analysis of that try was incorrect anyway. It was just a bad call, right? Normally you look for the separation.
Yep.
There was no separation. There was put down with downward pressure. It was just a bad call. I don't think the NRL or anyone is saying that certain calls were made out of bias, but it is an interesting move by the NRL.
It's a bad look. You're right. It's the right
that's
call.
Unfortunate.
It should have been made before. It should have been made before that. I don't know when Gavin Badger joined South.
It's unfortunate for Casey because it makes her look guilty without being guilty.
Correct. Yeah.
He was with the Tigers before South, so I'm assuming he moved with the clean out there that happened when Benji took over. So probably this is his first year there. That's just me speculating, though, of course.
Interesting. Hey.
Alrighty. Sharkies NRLW squad had a thrilling hit out against the Eels on Sunday, which saw them come from behind and take out the win 18-16 via a cracker of a try to centre Anessa Biddle in the 64th minute, with Taylor Preston converting to take the Sharks 2 in front. They also had to overcome losing star fullback Jada Taylor in the 45th minute to a knee injury. Jada had earlier scored a try and saved a couple, and in unfortunate news today, the club revealed her injury to be an ACL tear. Our thoughts and well wishes go out to Jada with the treatment and rehabilitation going forward. The girls sitting equal first after 2 rounds on 4 competition points and play the 5th place Raiders at GIO Stadium at 12:45 this coming Saturday. The 4th place Newtown Jets gave the 12th place Rabbitohs a 38-16 hiding at Henson Park on Saturday, with Sateni Takamo and Christian Dixon both bagging doubles, with tries also to Niwai Puru, Liam Eisen and Blake Hosking. Puru very handy with the boot, converting 5 goals from 7 attempts. The Jets go on to play Boldo's number 1 team in first place North Sydney Bears this Sunday at 3 p.m. at North Sydney Oval, which should be an absolute belter of a game. I just wanted to give a little shout out to our star physio and panellist Francis Crossley, whose son Lachlan plays for the Sharks Jersey flag team and managed to score a quick-fire double against Souths in the 10th and 15 minutes of the game on Saturday. So well in, Lachlan. Love your work, legend. It just finally, boys, there's been a lot of chatter amongst the socials of fans wanting Tricky and Nicho, when Nicho comes back, to go into number 6, Tricky to stay at half. I know they're just numbers, but they want Tricky to take on more of a game management role and allow Nicho to float and do his thing where he sees fit. So that's quite a lot of chatter about that in the socials, and fans I think they just want to take that responsibility of the game management off Nicho to just free his mind and let him play proper footy that they know he can play.
Yeah, well, now I guess the truth comes out about why I am hosting and why Boldo's not here. For those that watched the debrief episode, Boldo certainly threw the grenade of swapping the halves, and he's left us to dive on it. Historically, there have always been a difference between 6 and 7. However, it's become less and less over the last 10ish years. I do think our halves played a different role, especially when it was Hines and Moylan. Hines was your eyes up, take charge onto the ball type, while Moylan was barking orders, getting people in a position for the next play. These days, I agree, the number 7 is more of a prestigious title than anything, a way of silently acknowledging the top dog. All that said, though, let's look at the tape and compare it to a moment in history. So we've got Atkinson and Hines with 3 wins and 1 loss. We've got Atkinson and Trindle with 3 wins and 2 losses. And for a little bit of completeness, we've got Atkinson and Brayley for 1 win. So maybe the Titans game won't be as bad as we think. Now, I'm going to say that I think this is similar to the 06 season where Dykes and Kamali were our halves pairing, who for most of the season just couldn't click for whatever reason. Dykes and Carney bagged us a bunch of wins, while Kamali and Carney bagged their own pile of wins. Now, I'm not saying this is as bad as that, since we know that season ended with 10 losses in a row. And to be fair, Hines and Trindle shot out of a cannon to start this season. I just think they need to find what makes them click. So, I don't think the numbers need to change. CK, any opinion from you? Do you think numbers mean nothing, or would it be better having Trindle running the show?
Yeah, numbers don't mean anything to me in the halves anymore. In these days, I just don't think we're going to look at this week. We're going to look at obviously the time we beat the Storm with Atkinson and supposedly McInnes playing in the halves. I just don't think it's going to matter anymore. The 6 and 7, you can throw whatever number on. I think these days as well with the NRL, the way it's going, everyone's turning into more of a hybrid kind of style player, whereas before it was very dominant. You were the 7, you were the halfback, like you said. If everyone casts their mind back to you in 06, let's go 16. Maloney and Townsend were 2 completely different players, but players who like to control the ruck. But they had Innes controlling the ruck and calling a lot of plays as well. So, I think given that like you said, we shot out of the cannon at the start of the season, then we had sort of Trindle fall off the field for a little bit, and now Hines has fallen off the field. We just haven't had our halves together all the season, so I'm sure they can work it out over these coming weeks, coming into hopefully, fingers crossed, that we see them back together again, because who knows? We just don't know.
I think the happy medium was found last year. So I'm going to go off some vibes for a second, a bit Marbo-y Castle style. 2022, so we had Moylan and Hines. So I've no stats behind this, but Hines was your dominant kicker. He was kicking 40-20s. He was putting big torps up. He was not injury-plagued. Moylan had 0 kicking game. Brayley wasn't providing a kicking threat at a dummy half. Hines seemed to be doing a job. And then it kind of came to a head late in the season / probably the semi-final against the Cowboys, where Hines was being targeted. You get either intentionally or otherwise putting those little kind of chip kick, not a bomb, not a downtown, not anything really. And the Cowboys were getting out of trouble a fair bit. And there wasn't a second kicking option that was basically left us with Hines being smashed. And then South's game, our forward pack was busted. Just got overrun, and Hines couldn't kick us out of trouble. Following year, we started again with Moylan. He was, I suppose, a major issue in the left edge, eventually resulted in being swapped for Trindle. And immediately we identified that Trindle provided a second kicking option and actually took on the kicking role as a dominant kicker for a fair period at the back end of last year, like the win over South in Perth and other matches around there. Trindle was providing a lot. And the start of this year, I think they had that balance correct. And then the Trindle incident, absence, messed things up, and we didn't quite get into a rhythm post that. So I think if they get back and Trindle takes more of a, not quite a number thing, they don't mean anything anymore in this modern game, but a more dominant role in kicking, and especially in attack, right? He's got a grubber. He's got a better bomb. He's also got some really good ball playing ability as well. So we need to use him more. And yes, he's not Moylan in a ball playing capacity, but he's a very handy half. He can get you repeat sets. He can do a lot of things. He showed the other night that he can, when he's run the team. I'd argue that Trindle was the reason why we won the second half the other night, was because he put his stamp on it. It was the first time, probably outside of the South game last year, actually, South game in Perth, Trindle really put his stamp and took hold of it in the second half. It wasn't until the Cowboys game away that Hines really dominated the game. It was Trindle the game in Perth. I think Trindle the other night did dominate the second half and showed if he's going to, if a game needs to be grabbed by the scruff of the neck, admittedly against a reserve grade team, so it's not a good benchmark, but it showed that he could do that. I think if they get that balance right, things will go well.
Yeah, it's very interesting points, mate. You make a astute observation. Now, moving on from that, what else is there to learn from our injuries this year? We've had out injured, either extended or at various times, Finucane, Ueli, Rudolph, Hazleton, Colquhoun, Dykes, Williams, Hunt, Militalo, Wilton, Hines, and now Trindle. So almost everyone. Through that, we've seen Beryl, Ison, and Stone Street get their debut. Stone Street's been on both left and right flank. Tapua got his Sharks debut and several games off the bench. Burns came in for a stint. Iro came in and cemented his spot in the centres. Atkinson's come into the halves. Trindle's gone from 6 to 7. And wait for it, Talakai impact off the bench and also out of second row. Lats, which of these worked and what did you want to see more of?
Yeah, I want to see more of that impact from that impact bench. Talakai has been a boss off the bench. But how good is it having him there and having him being able to fill in at centre? Sorry, Paul, but honestly, it's just a beautiful thing to watch when you've got a big bloke like that can make an impact, but also has such soft hands and can throw the ball around and set up tries and whatnot. Yeah, mate, that's probably where it's at for me, is the bench. Fitzy really, I found, was using the bench really well there for a while, and I think that's teetered a bit lately. And yeah, we'll just have to see how we go in the next few weeks.
Williams, will any of this help for the season ahead or even next year?
For sure. I think so. I think that you need to have that resilience in your team. The games, no matter what, regardless of the state of the modern game, you're going to have injuries, you're going to have absences. But even more so now, we're seeing with the HIA, the impact of that. And it's going to have a huge impact. Probably it's for the greater good, right? It needs to happen. But you're going to see probably an example, let's say prelim final, Nathan Cleary, sorry, independent doctor, you're up for a HIA, 15 minutes, Penrith, adjust. Every team's got to have that. So I think it's only to our benefit. Sure, some things have worked, some things hasn't. Some things haven't. You can have Iro make one good run, and all of a sudden Boldo thinks he's the best winger since Matt Rogers. So legit, if you listen to the debrief the other night, I love you, Boldo, but don't agree there. It was a great run. It was a great try. But yeah, I think that we have learnt things out of it. And the bench, yes, again, I'm not going to blame Fitzy completely for this, because I think a lot of it's like dealing with the circumstances of a match, dealing with head injury affected rotation issues, injury affected rotation issues, trying to take advantage of certain things. And we've just, unfortunately, again, I thought we were setting up a right with Hanlon, Willey and Rudolph kind of coming into a bit of form, having been on a bit of a spell, and Hanlon Willey's got knee soreness again. It's frustrating. And that's what cruelled us, I think, in 2022 as well, that Hamlin Willey and Royce Hunt came into the finals injured/underdone when they were killing teams in August of that year. So, yeah, it's frustrating, but I think it's a greater good.
Okay. CK, a few rounds in this season, we spoke about how good our depth is. It has certainly been tested. Do we stand by that, or are we skinny in spots?
Look, we always spoke on the halves. If we lost a half in a spot for a while, it was going to be a bit of a danger, because it was probably the one, without knowing Atkinson could do such a good job at 6, that was probably going to be the weakest spot. Now we've lost both our starting halves, so it's kind of hard to do. The one thing out of the South game I did notice is our go forward just wasn't there. We never went through the middle. It was very sideways, and I think that was the biggest sort of mistake we made against a real weakened sort of South team. Like, they've got, Burgess off the bench and Kepi starting. It's not really a fearsome pack, and we had all our big guys. So we'll go into it with the team list again soon, but it's a bit strange to see who's getting selected this week, given that, again, we're going sideways and we're playing a Titans team that's very flashy and also big at the same time. Reminds us of us when we're at our absolute peak. So I'm still, jury's still out on what our best combination is, given that we keep going through these injuries. Because again, the bench has got messed up. But Talakai, like Lat said, he just comes on and provides such a great spark. He can play the middle, but yeah, when he gets in that centre spot for a brief little period, and just those silky hands came out like it was right in front of us. It was jaw-dropping stuff to see. Yeah. So I thought he might have jagged a little starting spot this week, maybe just to push someone else. But yeah, we'll go into the team selections. It's a bit strange. But I'm glad the club's also, I mentioned to you guys in the group chat, obviously today. So for your listeners, like William said, that Ueli's actually been named as having knee soreness. So there's the mystery sort of been solved of what we assumed. It's probably a bit of arthritic soreness that he's dealing with, I assume, and it's probably why the clubs aren't coming knocking at the door at the moment for his services. So hopefully he gets managed week in, week out, and sort of goes through there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right then. Based on that, CK, what happens when we're fully fit? Who misses out?
Yeah, it's we named our team a couple of weeks ago. It's probably still the same team that we're running out with the big bench and Talakai as the utility. We all enjoy that, but it's going back to what we do best and going through the front door. And like I said, there was nothing of that on Saturday night. There was no Royce Hunt off the back defence. There was no Kafusi sort of trudging up doing his job. Like we all said, I thought Toby was a lot better defensively and fitness-wise, but he wasn't punching through the middle. There was no one sort of leading the way, and we had all our guys out there, bar Tommy, who obviously was just, like we all thought, having just a bit of a spell. So I still think that's our biggest strength, is that big forward pack. But like I said, we just weren't using it. The guys as we're going. As much to Williams' delight, there was a couple of good Brayley darts out there at dummy half. So he actually had a couple of good runs out of there at a dummy half, a couple of scoots that worked well. But again, he went away from it. So I don't know what's going on there. So
that's the concern. That's like, come on, mate. If he didn't dart there, he was never going to dart on those opportunities.
That's right. Yeah. And then we're sitting in the stand with Boldo's brother AB, who hasn't sort of watched a few games. He said we start slowly, which again was the forwards not rolling, but he spoke on Stone Street not getting ball to that try. Like Ronaldo finishes that try, every time. So it's probably the big difference. So it's going to be those guys that kind of miss out, those guys in the lower tiers, we'll say, that probably won't get the start. We'll just go back to our strongest 17. Hopefully come semi-final time, I don't know, looking at ladder predictors and things like that, it's getting a bit skinny. We've got a cushion, but there's teams knocking on doors behind us.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, boys. If you're knee-wide Peru, you've got to be pretty disappointed. You've got to be very disappointed. Like, they're throwing a hooker in the halves. You're the next man up. You're doing very well in Newtown. You're scoring plenty of tries yourself, setting them up, and amazing with his conversions. He's kicking 7 from 7, 5 from 7. He's kicking at a high percentage rate, and this is your chance, and yet it's you're just not getting the call up. You'd be pretty disheartened.
Well, he's named on the extended bench, and I know Fitzgibbon has had, I suppose, history in the past of not playing Ducks and Drakes, I suppose, having a debutante. I think Kale Rowe was one. Cade Dykes was another where he didn't announce that during the week. Ison was an exception to that, but where they kind of have them training their extended bench, they're trained there the whole time, and then on the Friday they announce and go, "Ooh, this guy's going to be the guy making his debut this week." So maybe that's the case. Having said
I'd like
that,
to see him.
I haven't seen much by way of any Newtown games, but I have heard. I'll give a shout out to our, I suppose, stablemates, competitors, whatever you'd like to call them, both Sharkcast and Fins Up in their descriptions of Peru. And I'm going off trial form here, but he didn't excite me as much as when I saw him last year in the trials. I thought he looked a bit slow. So I'm not sure if that's carried over there, whether he's first grade standard or not. Having said that, we've had plenty of halfbacks over the years that are probably similar in capability. So
defense might be a bit of an issue as well. He certainly performed this past weekend, so he's turned it on when he needed to. But I think from a season and perspective as a whole, there's a few things that he needs to tighten up and look at. That said, though, I think you're right, Lats. It should be something he's aiming for, and Williams sort of touched on it. I think the Ison scenario is a bit different because we were playing up north, and so we had to put them on the plane and fly them up, so we couldn't do those ducks and drakes. So,
well, who else do you name at fullback there too to kind of cover that one? It was always going to be Ison and only Ison. I think where this one we can kind of maybe go the Melbourne plan, or maybe shape to be doing that, but reveal someone else.
Yeah. And then I guess, Lats, since you said it, you sounded a bit. I'm going to throw it out at you. You sounded a bit confused, mate. You said you loved seeing Talakai in the centres, but you love him as impact off the bench.
Well, I love him predominantly as impact off the bench, with the security there to play at centre if we need him.
I agree with that. I think he's the bench utility.
You look at that centre spot. You look at that try down that left edge. Anyone else playing in that centre position, that try doesn't happen. Talakai puts that bloke on his backside, gets the ball out, and the rest is history. But coming off the bench, predominantly coming off the bench, mate. But
I know I'm going to make enemies. Talakai.
Oh, Jesus, you're going to fire Paul up.
Lats is sitting on an ice pack because he's got so many splinters there right now. He's a bit of pain.
Yeah, I think just
from his decision, or
I think Talakai makes a lot of opportunities for us from 30 meters out. He sort of creates a lot of indecision in the defense and also tramples those that decide to take him on. I just don't think Iro gives that for us. Iro, as I've said time and time again, because people do get angry when I say this, he's a fantastic player, but it's just more tuck the ball under his wing and get the legs pumping to try and drive out the post-contact meters instead of really looking for the draw and pass, or some sort of shimmy and shake, hold the ball in one arm, wave it about, and cause some indecision. But I do think
talk all night about
is the best.
It's the perfect wicked problem, because if you put Talakai there, and I remember hearing Dave Riccio talking about this in the media when I suppose a fair bit of the fan base was up in arms at the start of the year when they said, why isn't Iro starting round one? Why is Talakai there? It's like, well, if you move Talakai, then does Ronaldo lose all those tries? What do you lose when you move Talakai? But Talakai is that good. We've now put him on the bench and we've gone, now if we move him for the bench, we lose that utility. We lose that impact. Who have you got there to replace that? Do you have to then put Atkinson on the bench? But that's not the same. It doesn't provide the impact. It really only covers maybe 1, 6, 7. He's not a winger. He's not a centre. So
he did get named on the wing.
He did. That was a oracle. I know it had to be done, but it's now we're looking at Talakai. He's got that, I suppose, performance punishment, you call it, the competence curse. He's very good coming off the bench now, and it's hard to give that up.
But the problem is, like Franko said, like Iro's got that, tucks the ball under and goes himself. But it's the same on the opposite side as well in Ramian. So we've got two centers who aren't great at offload / setting up their wingers to Ramian went off and Nikora was out there in the centers doing his job. And, 9 times out of 10, he's done a lot of setups for Katoa out that side. So it's kind of like we've got one of those things where we've got two very similar centers who are very capable, but they're not, they're going to beat their opposition number to the line. They're not really going to set up their winger. They're doing the hard yards, but it's not really, because again, it was like I said, that try of Talakai, the setup was right in front of us. It was a flashback. He literally just trucked it out and just sent it out. Like you didn't even see the pass coming, but you knew what was going to happen because you'd seen it. You've seen this movie before. And it just happened to be Iro, the winger, who, like Boldo said, he thinks he's Matt Rogers, but Iro knew that play was on and he threw it back in the trindle, so it wasn't Matt Rogers.
Look, I mean, Talakai was. We were all calling for Talakai to be taken out of the centres, and that's when Moylan was there. That's when Moylan was there, and that left edge was vulnerable to attack in poor defence. As soon as Moylan went, Tricky came in. Tricky covered him. Then T gets fit. T comes in. Then all of a sudden, the defence on that side's a lot stronger. So that allows Talakai to play there. And you're not wrong, Franko. See, I'm still sitting on the fence. I don't know where to go with it now. Made a conundrum.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Well,
Damn it.
I don't know if any of these changes have helped us learn anything or if it just gave us more to think about and talk about. We probably should move this on before we get a few more enemies on the whole Talakai discussion. And maybe we've stirred up some hornet's nests with the Nicho Trindle discussion as well. Thanks for that one, Boldo. We've got here from Mike Knight. He says, my 12-year-old daughter snapped a selfie with Tricky after the game and he didn't look happy. So, yeah, obviously led to the scenario today where he was not named on the team sheet. Williams 2.0 says, Nicho is definitely more of a 6. His best footy is when he runs the ball and he can create more off the cuff. There's nothing to say you can't do that with a 7 on your back, though, I don't think, Williams 2.0. But you never know, I guess. More of a psychological thing. Then the bigger Sharks fan says, Nicho is the big bet at 7 for the Sharks. Give him 50 more games and let's see then. And then perennial commenter Harley comes in and says, Sharks will win game revenge. So very
I
good.
hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, then, on to the Titans preview. Well, this Friday at 6 p.m. at Seabus Stadium, the Sharks take on the Titans after having gone down to them 16 points to 20 at home, only 4 rounds ago. Williams, do you have any history or stats for us that's different from what you gave us 4 weeks ago?
I'll give you a bit of a focus on, I might say that we're due or we've got a good record when we don't or something along those lines. But no, I'll just focus on Gold Coast history. And no, I'm not talking about the Tweed, Giants, Seagulls, Chargers, whatever. We could go down a rabbit hole there, but Melba's, Fishos, Titanic Bar.
Titanium Bar, yeah.
Titanium Bar, the bedroom,
Hollywood.
The beer garden. Now, here's one. Quick segue. I took the family for a holiday to the Gold Coast last year, December. Great time, just before school holidays. Take them out of school early, go up, get the cheap accommodation. And the beer garden, do you remember that place in Cavill Avenue? It's no longer the dingy cesspit that it was. It was called the beer garden, but none of it was outside. It was all this dingy inside bit with buck hunter and all that, and pool tables. Anyway, it's all a nice outdoor actual beer garden now. The beers were good. The food was great. Anyway,
I don't ever remember much of Cavill Avenue, the times I've spent there. So it's
So there you go. It was bizarre. I hadn't been to the Gold Coast in about 10 years, and here I'm there with kids going, this is all strange. I've got
it's my second home for a trip anywhere. I couldn't tell you anything about Cavill Avenue off the top of my head. It's all 4 a.m. memories.
living in Brisbane and ducking down there, or trips up to the Goldie in 07 and 08 and things like that with the Sharks. Anyway, so our record on the Gold Coast. So actually, we'll talk about overall. It's only changed by 1. So 27 matches total. Sharks v Titans has been 17 wins Cronulla, 9 for the Gold Coast, 1 draw. By way of Titans home matches, there was that one horror game at Carrara in 2007 where Preston Campbell scored that try, the very first win for the Gold Coast Titans. It was the very first loss for us up there. We didn't win there until 2011, and that happened to be as highlighted by Sports Music God. Thank you for the comment. Boldo and I chatted about it in the Chronicles last night. Didn't even highlight it was our first win against the Titans on the Gold Coast. So that was in 2011. So we have a total of 16 matches played there. Sharks 11 wins. That was the home matches. Gold Coast home matches 11 matches. Sharks 6, Titans 4 with the 1 draw in 2016. Unfortunately, we're on a bit of a streak at the moment. We've won the last 4 in a row up there. We last lost there 30 points to 10 in 2017. That probably means we're due for another loss. Hopefully not. In there, we had some weird
streak.
He said streak, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We had some weird wins in 2018. We had a 10 points to 9 win in Golden Point with Chad Townsend kicking 2 field goals. Back before that in 2015, we had the Valentine Holmes field goal in extra time there. And we've had some big wins of late. In 2020, we won 40 points to 10 up there. And in 2022, we won 25-18. So that was a reasonable result there. But yeah, I don't know.
I think before any streak kicked off there, my poor brother had attended most Broncos, if not Titans, game and hadn't seen a win in many, many years. So I think since 2020 he hasn't been back. So, but
did he go on the weekend just gone? Did he go on the weekend
No,
just gone? Because that was a
no.
huge win in front of a sold-out stadium. So our last win up there, or our last match, was in 2022. That was the famous Lockie Miller debut match where he scored that length of the field try in that torrential rain again. I'm not sure what the forecast is this week, but we won that one 25-18. I think we're down early. Similar to 2022, we went through a bit of a lull, had a few injuries in the forwards, weren't looking much chop. And I remember us going up there thinking, gee, the Titans are special there, and we jagged a result. So, I'm going to go into a tip here, and my head absolutely says Titans 13 plus, the way they're going. But somehow, gosh, we've got to do something. Sharks by 4.
All right. Well, Kelly, take us through the teams, buddy.
Yeah, Williams. Jeez. All right, so we got Will Kennedy back at the number 1 spot again. Katoa, Remy, and Iro, and Stone Shred again playing the back line. Atkinson, we've got Blake Brayley playing a named at 7 at the moment. Royce Hunt to start with Cam at 9 to replace Brayley. Kafusi to start. Nicho, Wilton, and no relation but Jack Williams at 13. Like we mentioned before, Jaden Beryl comes in at 14. Talakai at 15, Toby 16, and Big Tommy back on 17. Like the guys mentioned, we do have an extended bench, obviously, with a few injuries and carryings on. I'm sure there might be a little tweaks to the squad going up there. I don't know if someone could remind me who we think is going to kick goals out of this squad, out of this starting team. So, Franko.
Have to be Atkinson.
Surely Atkinson.
Craig has come in and asked that question, who's kicking goals? Maybe
Atkinson has a
lots of
100% success rate. Atkinson is 100% with the boot right now. He has to be Atkinson.
And can kick a field goal.
He can kick a field goal. It's also worth mentioning that, hold your hats, Talakai has also kicked for goals for us this season and kicked goals in the lower grades. So you never know. Depending on what happens, he could be a smoky for kicking goals as well.
Hey, Franko, that was a great little photo of Greg on there at some convention there too. There was
Let's bring that back up.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that.
Well done, Craig.
Nice
and
collectibles.
Buddy. Yeah.
Well done.
Good stuff.
Well,
while we're doing comments, we'll give CK a bit of a breather. Sess also says who will take dropouts if it's Brayley's field goal for the win. So yeah, I don't know who will take our dropouts. Probably again Atkinson. I think he did a couple of those against the Melbourne Storm. As for field goals, again, we know Atkinson can do that because he nailed one there. So that's all good. And our fearless leader, Boldo, has chimed in, couldn't help himself. He says he'll tip the Titans by 8. So very good. Tim Kelly. I don't know if any of us know Tim Kelly. He's going to the game, so the Sharkies will lose.
Told you.
The Sharks will lose.
He's got a terrible streak up there.
Tim Kelly twice.
And he's backed it up.
and he spelt it wrong twice.
He's a bit loose. He's been on the drink tonight or something.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Very good. All right, Titans team, CK.
All right, Keanu Kinney at the fullback, my favourite try-scoring player, AKP for me and Lats. Not a relation, Brian Kelly, Philip Sammy, and Jojo Fafita. Our young Jaden Campbell in at 6, old captain 7, Kieran Foran, Moe Faweta, Sam Varelis, Aaron Clark, David Fafita, Khalees Haas, and Chris Randall. Isaac Louis, Jamin Joffley, Hosea Palu'u, and Keenan Palacia, and coach Big Desi Hasler. The Titans have been on an absolute tear as of late, starting with our victory. They were down early against a Reece Walsh double, like William said, to a packed house up there, and then just absolutely turned on the blowtorch and blew the Broncos off the park. They've been doing this of recent weeks. They've actually started winning games, whereas at the start of the season, they're in tight tussles and sort of just getting away with either some rough decisions or close losses in Golden Point. And now they've hit their straps and they're pushing for an 8 spot. The team hasn't seen an injury. And kind of like us, their question now is when AJ Brimson does come back, where does he fit into that back line or that team? Because Keanu Kinney is an absolute star. I don't see him unseating any of the centres, and Jaden Campbell's killing it like his old man at 6. So they've got a few issues there in selection when he comes back. But
surely Foran's getting on Is he going around again next year? Surely he's getting close to retirement.
Yeah, but mate, again, even since he's been up there, the way he plays up in that team, he sets that team up. The amount of times, and you're going to ask Lats, he scored first try or hasn't scored first try, or at least set up first tries. He's still setting up a lot of tries. He's very much the old hand up there, whereas you got Jaden Campbell running around like a jackrabbit and the other guys. But they're, like I said, they're on an absolute tear of form. They're killing it. And again, up there in Gold Coast, I'm going to go with Williams and say I had 13 plus of the Titans. I just don't think Lightning strikes twice with Dan Atkinson in the 6. I think we had a great game. As much as the hope of other teams on the weekend pushing towards upsets in the Dragons down in Melbourne and a few other teams going close and causing big boilovers, I just think the key injuries we got, it's going to be a little bit tough.
Williams Forum has been signed for next year, so he's going around again.
Okay. I absolutely despise saying I told you so, but 4 or 5 weeks ago before the game in Coffs Harbour, everyone was shouting me down. I was like, no, this team can play. Kelly, you nailed it with their big, mobile, fearsome forward pack. It does remind us a bit of that, not on paper, but the way they play is similar to the Flano.
Fodawaker obviously played Origin this season. Fafita missed
true.
out. He's come back from injury. You got Hass's brother there, Randall, and Louis coming off the bench, and the other guys are pretty fiery off the bench as well. But it's very similar to when we're cracking because, like I said, their backline's electric. Like AKP scores tries at least every game, if not a double. Keanu Kitty chimes in very much like Reece Walsh as well, and Campbell is killing it as well. So,
are they a champ?
Yeah, I've always had a soft spot for the Titans, but the problem is they don't live up to those expectations. But yeah, they're just killing it. They're sitting 11th at the moment, but they're obviously tied with those other teams. So we'll see how they go.
If they had this form throughout the season, they'd be top 4, I reckon.
Is it a confidence thing for them or something else? They're just starting to click?
It is more just starting to click in where those guys, like I said, they got those guys in position. They've gone 4-1 since they've played us last. But they've been by, they were down 14-0 to the Dolphins and come back and won that game as well. So, like I said, they're down quickly 12-0 against Reece Walsh, put on a bit of a show in the first 10 minutes. And we just were able to just absorb that and know they got a lot of points in them. So it's that combination of Kinney and Campbell, which is, electric. And like I said, the sort of experienced forward around there with a big pack. Fafita's not carrying his team on his shoulder, sort of like Gallen used to do for us. So, they've just hit their straps at the moment, but whether they can push a top 8, it's one of those things where, like I said, we got a buffer in the ladder, but a lot of teams around that sort of area are playing each other for the next couple of games. So, like your Knights, your Titans, your Dragons and Dogs are playing this week. So, we'll just see what happens.
Lats, how are we placed this week compared to 4 weeks ago? Are we going to blame injuries, or is it something since we beat the Storm with a similar team? We can't use those excuses. What are we saying here,
mate? With the disruption to our halves and their explosive backline, they're a young team. They're a young, fast team with a couple of old heads in there to steer the ship. I think they're going to put a score on us. I think they're going to get us 13 plus. I think
all around
we seem to do well when we're down on our chips and we dig in and have a crack. But I just think they're going to run rings around us.
Fair enough. I think looking at the team, we saw a very similar structure, at least around the spine against the Storm. While Brayley was named at 7, he certainly played dummy half. He didn't play 7 that match, and I imagine we might see something similar here where Cam is sort of seen there as a distribution from 7, maybe rotating with Williams. The Beryl on the bench is a bit of an interesting one. I don't think he performs that lock role as well as Talakai did against Souths. So I'm not sure what Beryl would do that Talakai wouldn't do if he's there to cover the spine. So McKinnis back to lock. And then either he goes into the halves as we saw in New South Wales Cup, or Brayley does actually play 7 and Beryl goes in, slots in at 9. So be an interesting one. I'm almost feeling obliged to pick the Sharks since everyone else has gone against them.
I did change my bet to Sharks by 4 just out of just sheer hope. Nothing else.
There we go. I think we're due. I think we're starting to turn the corner. I think there's a lot to prove from some of the guys. I think Tapua might be a sneaky inclusion as well. Who for? Good question. I'm not willing to put anything on that. So
probably Barrett.
Barrell's
Probably the one that drops out, I reckon, because you've got Talakai there already.
Have to be.
You've already got
maybe Toby.
I think the strangest one. I know this will sound weird, even though Brayley's playing 7, but Jack Williams starting at 13 when I thought last week on Saturday night, I was kind of calling for him to play a few minutes. Like he only pumped out 24 minutes on the weekend in a game where it was a bit of an arm wrestle and we needed a bit of an impact and a bit of a push forward. And now he's just going straight into starting lock. I thought it was a strange selection. We sort of mentioned back to the other guys like Finn's up and that they talk about like the rotation, the bench. Like most of our forwards didn't tick over 30 to 40 minutes in that rotation. So I find it a bit weird that all of a sudden he's just been thrust to the starting team and, I suppose it's necessity, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess that's what we spoke about, right? Our depth is being tested, so we've got to see who can perform where. I'm going to give us a sneaky win. I do think Tapua would be a good addition against the Titans. We spoke about big, strong, mobile pack, and he certainly brings that, even if it's a short burst. But yeah, I'll go Sharkies by 4. Williams, is that what you reckon? We'll stick together there, birds of a feather.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Williams 2.0 comes in and he says Sharks by 10, Goat Street for a double. So a bit of confidence.
Stone Street's now Goat Street. How good.
Yeah, very good. Very good. I like it. All right.
Well, the one thing I suppose the Titans do
a double last
concede
week.
A lot of points. Yeah, they do concede. He scored a triple last week. And they do concede quite a few points. They don't mind a shootout, so it could happen.
Very good. Hopefully we stick it to him. I reckon we're due, as Williams would say. The NRLW Sharkies 2 from 2 after coming from behind to beat the fancied Parramatta team and come up against the Raiders in Canberra without speeds to fullback Taylor. However, Tonagato is on the extended bench and a chance to return. Kelly, we're going to put you on the spot, mate, and get you to take us through the NRLW team.
Like we said, we've lost our fullback for the season, so it's a bit of a change there. And Peter Tarney, Staples, Byers, Biddle, Ravix, Hanaway, Preston, Johnson, Dodd, Wheeler, Holmes, Folowaki, Anderson, and we've got Davis, Welsh, Saunders, Taka Pogalutu, and Dimmick on the bench with Coach Tony Herman. Like we said, Emma is on the extended bench. I hope she does play because we are missing a bit of experience and probably need her to slot right in. So if she does get out there, it'd be good. But I did catch the Raiders on the weekend, and they had quite a strong team out there. So they had Nichols, Bartlett, Robbins, Reddy, Wiki, Tungi, Tamara, Quinlan, Kelly Signs, Tamara, Hollyman, Soilaw, Dodd, Tafua, Barnes, Kemp, Maddo, and that's a good one, Sarita Natas Kadua. With Darren Borthwick as the coach. So that's a great name. I like that one.
I hope I pronounced it.
I don't think that was it, but that works.
Yeah, we'll go with that one.
Wiki and Soliola are 2 good Raiders last names there. I wonder if there's any relation to Ruben.
Sure there is.
Yeah.
Quite
There's a tour in there as well.
Need to do some research on that one. Do we think we're going to go 3 from 3, Williams?
I hope so. I'm not exactly educated on the Raiders' chances. Obviously, big outs with the loss of our fullback. And yeah, as Kelly said, Tonagato was a late absence the other day on the extended bench. So hopefully she slots back in. Real pain, real feeling of not dread, but just a shame, really, that we've had such a big loss. I watched the game with the boys on Sunday, the entire match, and it was really good. I'm looking to take the boys down to a home game in the coming weeks because it was good to see the girls do well, and they fought back hard. It was kind of classic Sharks match. We were parked in their line for a fair bit of the second half, didn't take advantage. Parramatta go downfield, get a fortuitous try, kick the goal to take the penalty from a fair way out to take the penalty goal out of the equation. And then we got that late win with the Taylor Preston late try with the Taylor Preston conversion, sealing it was good to see. So hopefully, gamble responsibly.
Yeah, look, it's quite. We'll go on the back of Williams. You got Sharks at $2, the Raiders at $1.80, Like I said, I caught the Raiders Knights game last week. Obviously, the Knights are reigning premiers and have quite a good team. But the Canberra took it to them. It was quite back and forth, and there was a couple of denied tries out there. So it was quite a good game. But yeah, we might be it might be like our first grade men's. We're sort of getting a bit skinny and starting to find some players to fill some spots. So we'll see how it goes.
I like to think we've got our defence in order, and we will punch above our weight and get the win. All right, CK, as the man who watches and understands all things league, do you want to take us around the league and let us know what's going on?
Let's go. Let's get straight into it. So obviously today, the Hall of Fame 2024 class was named today. We actually got mostly administrators, broadcasters, and coaches in for the first time. So Wayne Bennett and Jack Gibson have been named to join those guys, along with Ken Alderson, John Quayle, Frank Hyde, and David Morrow. So quite a famous class there. Obviously going in before any players at the moment have been named in there. So 12 premierships between Wayne Bennett and Supercoach Jack Gibson. We all know how John Quayle and Ken Alderson were administrators during the 80s and 90s through there, and David Morrow and Frank Hyde their work as commentators. So quite an illustrious class and quite cool to see.
Absolutely.
So as we spoke on, the bunker had a bit of an inconsistent week over the weekend. There was on Friday night or Thursday. Was it Thursday or Friday night? I'm trying to go back in time here.
Thursday was Abby.
Thursday. So it was West Tigers versus the Cowboys, and we saw Justin Olam with a bizarre sort of swinging arm that no really reaction out of anyone except for a few Cowboys players, reviewed by the bunker, and was deemed to be a send-off, which kind of cruelled the game. The Cowboys were a 10-point touch at that stage. We then saw on the weekend we had Big Nass against St George have a similar hit with his shoulder, and it was only placed on report. We then saw Joey Manu have a similar hit on the hammer as just after he passed the ball and faced 10 minutes. So in that, we had a send-off, an on report, and a sin bin. So everyone's been left scratching their head at some bizarre installments because they've sort of again moved away from, and I kept sort of saying on the weekend, I saw the Tigers do a few, let's call them disruptors as they jump for the ball, but nowhere near it, and nothing was called. We then get a send-off, we then get an on report, and we get a sin bin. So it's then going back to where not every hit on the head is the same, and it's getting a bit strange and bizarre. So Olam's facing 2 to 3 weeks on the sideline of suspension, but it's come out today that he's having double knee surgery and will miss the rest of the season. So I don't know why they were going to fight that judiciary when he's not going to be there. Nass only got a fine, and so did Joey Manu. So we'll move on from there from the bunker.
That fine business. It's just how Warrior Hargraves has been spent his entire life. Take someone's head off. Oh, here's $100 fine. Move on.
Yeah, it's so inconsistent. So
he's only
the movements
played
are
for
finally
half his
happening.
contract.
Yeah, he really has. So the movements are continued. So we finally got some news out of Stefano Utokumanu out of the West Tigers has now officially agreed to join the Melbourne Storm for 3 years, which is quite strange given his family resides here in Sydney. But, if you're going to go play somewhere, you might as well go to the Melbourne Storm. He's obviously knocking about a bit of cash to go down and play in Melbourne. And the other one has gone out of Blaze Tulagi. He's the young gun out of Parramatta's now moving on to Penrith as of next season. So the Panthers are losing a couple of players in Taruva, Luai, James Fisher-Harris, but they're now picking up Papali'i out of the West Tigers. And Blaze Tulagi will probably play 6 again with Cleary in the halves. So a bit of a
Just
strange
another one,
another
Chris,
one
before you jump on, mate. It was announced earlier tonight Tavita Pangai Jr. has brushed Wayne Bennett and going to the Catalans Dragons.
Yeah. Which I quite enjoy because, he was a guy who said, I can't live in Sydney. I quit Sydney. I'm going to go become a world champion boxer. He then went to the Redcliffe Dolphins. After his boxing career, went for a quick nosedive and then was touted to go to South Sydney and go back to Sydney. So it was a bit strange.
Yeah.
Obviously, some big
start.
scenes out at Belmore, a sellout with the Bulldogs taking on the Canberra Raiders. We had a massive crowd there out at Belmore. There was a bit of a brouhaha afterwards on the socials with the drumming Raiders fan out in the streets, and the Bulldogs celebrated it like it was 2004 all over again with some donuts and some street riots and carry on for being currently in 5th place. And on the back of that, because they're playing the Dragons this week out at Cogra, the tickets sold out as of Monday for a capacity crowd of 20,000 at Cogra there. So Dragons fans and Dogs fans back at it. It's going to be like the early 2000s. should be interesting. There was a few calls out of the media to maybe move it to the SFS, the new ground out there. They're trying to get 40,000, which I'm guarantee they would have, given that the suburban grounds don't make as much money and what they kind of lose. But, we'll see how this goes. Williams, what would your thoughts on moving on a suburban ground game like they've done before with semi-finals and to fit capacity crowds?
That's a big call. I don't think so. I think it's hard to do as well, given that. So you got to, let's say, if they turned around and said that about Shark Park, we've got a blockbuster game going to happen. Somehow it's definitely going to sell out against whoever we're playing. Let's say the Bulldogs. And they move it to Allianz.
We sell out every week.
Yeah, we said we do. Big question mark on that. But it's a big call. Dragons, are they giving up a home ground advantage if they move it to Allianz? I'd say probably yeah. Having said that, you look at this clash 4 weeks ago, no one would have said boo about it. Probably would have been lucky to get 8,000. Dragons get a big win and have some decent form of late. The Bulldogs have suddenly had some really good results, and every guy's coming out of the woodwork to support them. It just reminded me, though, that brouhaha with the Raiders guy reminded me of the return to Belmore game, Sharks v Dogs at Belmore in 2015. And Sharks players not being allowed in the Leagues Club wearing merch because of fear of, I suppose, Dogs fans not being able to behave themselves. It's and also too, I think at the ground, kind of not quite segregation, but almost like, hey, you wear a Sharks jersey at your own risk. Come on, guys. It's not European soccer. It's not the English Premier League. Please behave yourselves. That's all I can say.
Franko, you look a bit miffed about moving games to bigger stands.
I think it's terrible. I think it's the worst thing to have happen, especially in a regular season match where a whole bunch of supporters have ticketed season passes. You pay to sit in a seat for whatever it is that you've agreed to, 12 games, 11 games, whatnot, to then have, say, the NRL take that decision out of your hand and move it to a bigger stadium where you might not be willing to travel or able to travel. You're not going to get the same seat in the same position. It's just an awful scenario. And I've got nothing against sellout crowds with people wanting the hottest ticket in town. That creates demand. That creates people maybe buying tickets more in advance instead of just sitting on their hands and not looking to buy a ticket. I think something like the Wars at the moment, who are sold out all season long, that's excellent, right? You now next season will have people saying, well, if I want a ticket, maybe I should become a member. Maybe I should lock in my seat, and that demand creates the fandom. That demand creates corporate sponsorship, because now if you want to take people, corporate customers or whatever, to somewhere, take them to the hottest game in town where you can't get seats, can't get tickets, come to me, sit, watch the game in my box. So no, don't move the game. That's terrible.
The only thing was what Buzz said was, on 360 the other night, was it ranges from $250,000 to $750,000 they miss out on in corporate sponsorship during those matches or corporate boxes. So,
but you're talking about that one match. I'm talking about long-term strategy where you build that demand for the season long, right? And over that period of time, season upon season, sellout game after sellout game, you now get to start raising prices. You now get to start raising membership prices.
Well, on the back of that, Belmore's now come out today and said that you now have to, if you're a member, you get first in on Belmore games from now on for general admission, because obviously the ground doesn't have a lot of seats. So it's a lot of hill sort of areas. So the members now are looked after for Belmore from now on.
Shark should absolutely do the same with Shark Park as well. There's only a handful of GA that goes on sale each week. There needs to be that drive to be a member. I agree with that, Franko. I think just a side point is some of these suburban grounds that talk about, so Leichhardt, for example, they can, I don't know, it's like 8 corporate boxes or something, minuscule compared to the new stadium. So if they can find a way to fix that problem, I don't know how. Have like just build a little kind of skybox thing above the older stadium there that Rupert can go and hang in Simpson style. I don't know, but
Or you Airbnb your house at Leichhardt that looks over the ground, charge an
Maybe they
absolute
should.
premium.
That's it. Or charter a few blimps or something. I don't know. That just hang there and you can have your fancy. I don't know. Think outside the box.
All right. And the last bit around the league is obviously Sean Johnson announced his retirement at the end of the season. You can see there he obviously played for most of his career the Warriors, but he obviously played for us Sharks, having 44 appearances over 3 seasons, 6 tries, 119 goals. He played 32 matches for New Zealand, won a stack of awards. The only thing he hasn't knocked over, obviously, is the premiership, but one hell of a player coming out of New Zealand. And congrats on Sean and his career. Hopefully he gets one little crack at semis, but after last weekend's performance against Parramatta, I think it might be gone. And I did call this at the start of the season, but we don't want to tell you so. So, yeah, Sean Johnson, retirement.
Gone. Yeah, well, I guess now Sean Johnson had a bit of an interesting time at the Sharks. He was signed by Flanagan under much fanfare, who was then kicked out before getting a chance to coach him. Johnson, as you said, was with us for 3 years, 44 appearances, and a win percentage of 50%. I feel that his time at the Sharks is closely intertwined to Morris's time as head coach, with rumours Morris was given his marching orders over contract renewals surrounding Johnson and inability to make a decision, whose papers were then himself stamped with the departure of the coach. Lats, were you excited to see him join us at the time?
Yeah, mate, I was pumped. I remember getting the news. I was at work and I was really G'd because after 2016, I wanted to dare to dream again, and having a star half like Johnson, I thought he might have been the man to take us there again, but unfortunately not. Wasn't to be. But I love Johnson. He's just such a top bloke, top human being. He's got time for everyone. He's a gentleman. He's respectable. He's a good role model, and good luck to him. And congratulations on such a good career.
Lats, were you excited to see him go?
Well, that's a funny one.
He's already got splinters. Don't start.
He was quite injury prone, and I couldn't wait to see the back of him. No, he was. No, look. Again, I liked having him at the club for a leadership role and that role model figure. I thought he was good from a marketing perspective, and I was actually pretty sad to see him go. To be honest, I was actually pretty sad. I know, injuries got the better of him, but I'd still like to have him around. I just think he's good for the dressing sheds, and he's a good role model.
I certainly feel that things got a little bit sour there, where it was sort of announced that he wasn't going to be renewing, and yes, we had COVID and whatnot. There's a little bit of, I'm not traveling up with the team, and I'm not hanging around. I'm not helping out where I should do. So that was a bit of a sour end to the tale, I think. But yeah, I agree with you, lads. I thought he was a really good brand ambassador for the time that he was on. Williams, was he good for us on the field?
I was really excited when we first signed him. That was hot on the heels of Valentine Holmes being offered the biggest Sharks contract of all time, and then deciding he had an NFL dream and departing without really telling anyone at the club. That's something that I really hold against it. And I'm Gen Y myself, and I'm like, come on, dude, just communicate, right? Just say thanks, but no thanks. Just don't go missing. But anyway, maybe I'm just kind of still scarred by that.
Ooh,
so anyway,
Val rant.
Val rant into a Sean Johnson rant. So there's a Sean Johnson interview, I think, on the Chad Townsend podcast a few years ago, and maybe another one on the James Graham podcast, where he talks about how he departed the Warriors. Didn't see much coming, and then all of a sudden there was, I think it was to do with maybe even the CEO or someone high up at the Warriors going, no, we need to rejig the cap. Johnson's demanding too much, not providing, and Johnson was obviously standout 2011. I think he was Rookie of the Year, took him to the grand final, had an absolute cracker of a season with James Maloney in the halves as well. Massive upset against Melbourne at Amy Park in the prelim final. And then at the age of, I think he was 19, playing in a grand final, he talks about how, gosh, is this going to be every year? Obviously not. And then throughout his career, he became more and more of a divisive character amongst the Warriors fans. His probably pinnacle of his career, I'd say, was probably the 2013 semi-final win at Wembley, where with just seconds on the clock, England had it in the bag, and he just goes step, 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 score. And then a few years later, he had probably his biggest moment at Shark Park, which happened to be the Warriors jersey, just after Andrew Fafita had scored a very Fafita-like try, barging, charging, tossing guys off like flies, scoring maybe grand finalists to put us in the lead. What could possibly go wrong from here? And then right on the full-time siren, Johnson goes step, try. So when we signed him, fantastic. 2019 was a bit of an up and down year. He had the issues with goal kicking. I was surprised to see statistically his final, I suppose, stats for us as a goal kicker was about 75%, which is good. So looking at his Cronulla time, it was actually 78.29, 119 goals from 152 attempts. But for a period there in 2019, it really went by the wayside. He kicked none from 3 against the Bulldogs at Homebush in a match that really cruelled our, I suppose, top 4 chances, and was in a run of matches where we scored more tries and did not win. I think the following week we went down to Canberra, same thing happened again. So he was starting to cop a bit of stick for that. He also had some injury concerns. There was concerns as well around. So Paul Gallen's farewell match, he was a late admission there, and this is just rumours and innuendo that I heard, but apparently he wasn't doing the extras required to get himself on the field, they were saying. So that was I suppose a product or an unstable factor in the dressing room. Go forward to 2020, where he was on track to be Dally M Player of the Year until he did his Achilles against the Roosters at the SCG. I think we're charging back into that match. We're down by 4. We're looking good. And then he just stepped off I think it was his right foot, and then went pop. And that was our season gone there, I reckon, despite us making the finals. And also, unfortunately, that was Sean Johnson's career with us pretty much gone. He went so he had 23 tries, this is the league high. Obviously out for the season, out for a fair bit of the following year too. First came back from injury was the ill-fated Bulldogs match at Cogra with Harodi on the wing, Talakai with a massive shoulder charge and getting sin-binned, and Johnson. I suppose Achilles are always very difficult to come back from, and only played a handful of games that year before. Obviously, the entire world, Sydney especially, was thrown into lockdown. And I agree with he had a young kid at the time and his wife, and they were keen to get back to New Zealand. We've all been there. We've all got families. We know how difficult that time would have been for them. And I suppose he was getting some unfair attention, I think, from the fans with regards to he didn't travel with the team, but probably the communication on his part or his management could have been better as well, going, hey, here's the deal. Thanks, but no thanks. But it wasn't quite, I suppose, what it could have been. And there was a match in around there before the lockdown where he, I believe, didn't travel to Cogra, for example, to watch with the team. He stayed home instead, things like that, where it's like, hey, is he Team Sharks? Is he Team Johnson? So that was his, I suppose, the criticism that he copped there. But still plenty of great moments for us, I thought. It did his role in that period where we lacked a genuine playmaker. He was it. And then obviously the change in the guard, him departing mid-21. So Fitzgibbon did have a chat with him and had the opportunity to keep him. And I think all the talk at the time was he'll keep Johnson and flick Moylan, and the reverse happened. And then what's since been shown, where Moylan was really out of form in 2019 through 2021, Moylan was a big voice in the dressing room, which was kind of, I suppose, not really identifiable from the outside looking in, but it was more evident in his final years. And then also too got his body right and proved to be a huge factor and huge player in the 2022 season for us. So thanks, Sean Johnson. All the very best. It's a shame that he's not going to get a premiership because it looks so promising early on in his career with that grand final in 2011.
And not a Daily M either. I think it was one of those interesting scenarios, a short-term memory for the experts and the commenters and the press, talking about how Andrew Webster's unlocked Sean Johnson last season and he's never played better. I kind of feel that he'd unlocked himself at the Sharks. He'd already learnt how to play without being that flashy, zippy, step player. And I thought he had a really good season with us before that injury. Yeah, he was great. And I don't think I saw anything above and beyond that season last year. So I thought he did really well for us. CK, should we be happy that we're one of 2 clubs that he played for in the NRL?
Oh, 100%. It was like kind of like Lat said, like you knew Flatto was always around that 2014, 2016 sign and gun players that maybe on the back end of their careers, and your Innes and your Lewis and your Heinzens and players like that. And I just thought it was fake news at first. You see in pictures, having coffee with Flano down in Cronulla, and I thought, yeah, maybe it's a bit of a pipe dream, and all of a sudden it fell into place. Unfortunately, it turned into him and Moylan hand in hand of two players I really enjoyed, one at Penrith and one at Warriors, been absolute superstars, and their timing and injuries just sort of cruelled what could have been for us in those situations. It was great watching the Wars run last season, like everyone got on board, and Sean Johnson was a massive part of that. But like you said, Franco, you already had that ability. We saw flashes of it, but it was just, and I bemoaned it plenty of times when those two would make a break. They look for support pretty quick because they just weren't trusted their bodies in that stage of their career to go the length of the field. It wasn't the Sean Johnson, the touch football player. It's kind of like Moylan, getting to the break and all of a sudden, where's my support? Because I'm not going to run past 40 metres because I'm going to miss another 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring injury. So, go Williams. Yeah.
On that, so Sean, it wasn't on that visual you showed there, Kelly, but Sean Johnson kicked one field goal in his 3 years for the club. It happened in a match that was also well known for Matt Moylan's hamstrings. Do you remember what that game was?
Oh, you're testing it now.
It was a Friday night in the wet at Cogra 2021 against the Panthers during Origin. Panthers were injury affected. Moylan made that break, and I think he's still running. All of us are like, gosh, don't pop hammies, don't pop. And he made it. He made about 70 metres and scored. And I think Sean Johnson scored a try in that one too. I looked up before, he kicked 3 from 5 that night, and the Sharks won 19 points to 18 with a last-minute Sean Johnson field goal to that was our last win over the Panthers. We haven't looked close before or since for a long time.
And I suppose that was the thing. We you asked Sharks fan about Sean Johnson. People kind of forget we had him because it was a bit of a flash in the pan. But there were flashes there. There were times where games where him and Moylan just lit it up, or Johnson by himself was setting up tries left, right, and centre, doing it himself. You're like, how good's this? And then other times it was just, where is he? Like, where's he gone? But yeah, one of my favourite players playing for New Zealand and obviously playing for the Warriors, and wish him all the best. I don't have any ill will because, like I said, it was just one of those situations where the thing hit worldwide and, family situations, and have a bit of a swan song. The Roosters did come knocking for this season and next before they signed Chad. So obviously Trent Robinson wanted a bit of an experienced half going around there. So he still had offers on the table, but obviously decided to call it a career and finish up the Wars. I'm sure he'll end up with a speaking job over there and some sort of commentary over there because he can hold a microphone quite well. So I'm sure it's not the last we're going to see of Sean Johnson.
Sports will have his name on speed dial, I reckon.
Pretty cool. 2019, when Benji Marshall was still playing, his childhood hero was Benji Marshall, and he got to pair with him in the halves in, I believe it was 2019, he was talking about it. So with Benji playing one more test for New Zealand around that time. So,
yeah, I think it was definitely an interesting time to be a Sharks fan. We had obviously COVID and lockdowns. We had the Leagues Club was shut down and we're playing out of Cogra. We had Morris as the coach. We had a whole bunch of young debutants come through in Nicho and players from other clubs like Ueli and Hunt and Talakai. So it was all a moment of change, and I was really kind of, I'm going to stick the word weird on there, but that might not be doing it justice. It was certainly exciting because even if we weren't winning, there was something different happening each week that was kind of cool to see. All right, here we go. Let's end this off with a bit of show and tell. I'd like to say we've got something special, but I've honestly got no idea what we're about to see. However, considering it's something that Williams has to show us, it can only be great, right? Don't let me down, Williams. What have you got?
Just let me disconnect for 2 seconds while I step behind myself.
Whoa!
All right, now he's gone.
For those listening on Spotify, Williams has gone to the back of his room. He's stolen some things off the wall.
To the wall.
Here we are.
He's emptied the house.
We're back. So we're back. We're taking some memorabilia off the wall, and no, my little hard quiz green room sign is not the memorabilia. This doesn't have any Sharks mentioned. There's Sharks related though. Anyway, this guys, any players ringing a bell here? Looks like a illustrious here. Sorry, I was blocking the microphone there. I'll just hold it up here so you can see. I'll give some away. Brett Kamali, Paul Gallen, Paul Fronze, Danny Nutley, Phil Bailey. Who else have we got here? We've got Matt Biggerstaff, Chris Beattie, Greg Bird, David Peachy, Pat Gibson. He's the big outlier there, Pat Gibson, Jason Stevens. What year am I talking about here, gentlemen?
You're going to go 2003.
Hey, nailed it. 2003. It was just
Oh,
missing
yeah.
Nick Youngquist, Jason Kent, and the like. Anyway, I proudly got that, and it was a great birthday present post 2001, 2002, thinking, how goes this? This is going to be the team. And no, it wasn't the team. So anyway, I'm sure those playing cards come to a grand total of about $2.50 on that website. On a side point, here's a little Shark Park thing that I jagged back in 2018. I only made it to one home game that year. We had our first child and shift work and the like, and living in Newcastle at the time. Made it down for the loss to Manly in Golden Point. There was a bit of a pre-match shenanigan that occurred there where they picked some random seats out of the crowd. David Boldman wasn't one of them, but myself, my lovely wife Lauren, and my brother Blake were. And they said, do you want to go out and, I can't remember the name of the tax company or some accountant's company. We had to throw these giant dice 5 meters and they had to land on the right TAX to spell tax. Originally, the plan was 10 meters and they had the players doing it during the week. And even the players couldn't even throw it about 3 meters. So we never had a chance. These things were enormous. And I think it was to win 10 grand. So obviously we didn't even go close. You could barely, they were these giant, I suppose, blow up kind of things that you throw. So anyway, we won a signed 2018 jersey each. So that was a nice little surprise there.
You're showing us an incomplete roster of cards for 2003. And the consolation prize for not getting the 10K.
Correct. Almost as good. I remember Dave Wheeler at the time going, and we were going all right. And I think losing to Manly that day, we thought, gosh, we're definitely not going to be top 4 now. And then we beat Melbourne the following week in Melbourne. 2018 was a pretty fun season. And then we, unfortunately, Luke Lewis had Latrell Mitchell tackle him as he was catching the grubber that would have put us in the lead in the major quarterfinal against the Roosters. If we won that, we were a week off, and I reckon on our way to another grand final. Instead, we beat the Panthers by 1 and then lost to Melbourne. So 2018, it could have been a great year, could have been a great jersey, could have been framed on the wall. Instead, I've just got it on a hanger here, and I don't think I've ever worn it.
Could have been 10 grand.
Could have been 10 grand as well. Could have been 10 grand. So, anyway, as a side point though, so like basically first outing out with our few-month-old Ronan, who's now a little footy head, but shout out to friend of the show, Bryn Sturgis, his lovely wife, Lara, who held on to Ronan for the next half an hour while we got dragged down the tunnel and then went out in the field and did all that stuff. So and spoke to Dane Wheeler and did all that. So.
Brilliant. Very good. I love it. Thank you very much for that, Williams. Awesome stuff. We've got one final comment here from Williams 2.0, who's asking, who's the better Kiwi half, Johnson or Jones?
Stacey Jones.
Yeah.
Jones.
Got to be Jones.
They were against the salary sombrero Roosters in 2002. Jones scored one of the great individual tries in a grand final. And if they weren't playing the Roosters, I reckon the Warriors, they had a red hot side and they would have gone very close to winning it themselves. So he was unlucky there. Plus, sure, Sean did win that 2013 semi-final against England with that great step and try, but Jones was more consistent and more commanding. And they even had a big win late in Stacey Jones' career back in 2006 at Homebush at the time. I think they put on, it was a record score at the time. I think it was like 40 points to 18 or something along those lines. It was high, and Jones had an absolute ripper. And then that was that final that went to like the 90-something minute. And I think Darren Lockyer or JT or someone scored the Golden Point try. So Stacey Jones, his entire career was Lockyer. There you go. Yeah, I was at Schoolies at the time, actually, and knew nothing of the match until the next day. But Johnson was good. Jones was, something else.
Yeah,
I
think I'll go with Jones. He was the original poster boy for the Wars before it was the Wars. So he's probably, it took an unknown team. Is Boldo one of Boldo's favourite matches, the 2002 against the Sharks. So one of his favourite ones to talk about, the prelim final. So Stacey was the poster boy before that. But if you've seen Stacey now, it looks like he ate Stacey Jones. So I don't know how he's getting around so quick, but he's still part of the coaching staff over there at the Warriors. But
he's a legend guy.
Sean Johnson, he's a great bloke.
He's not a tall fellow, so it's not hard for him to pack him on, poor guy. But
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of lean into the whole different eras debate. I think that there's certainly different players. I just feel as though Johnson was more noticeable in what he did. Obviously, less so than what he achieved in compared to Stacey, but yeah, I just feel as though Stacey seemed to have better players around him, and Johnson for most of his career was a one-man band, and I feel that's got to count for something. So I'm going to go against the grain and go with Johnson.
Even the 0-1, the 0-2 Warriors, just unbelievable, those teams. Like the amount of points they would score and things like that. It was just,
I'm going to go Stacey Jones just for the sheer fact he's got stronger Achilles. And he'll need them now, apparently.
Oh, no, love it. Oh, gosh. All right. Well, with that, thanks very much, Williams, Lats, Kelly. Great show as usual. We're going to open the hornet's nest here and say, is there anything else you want to add before we shut up shop? No.
I was looking at that match that Stacey Jones had a cracker against Australia it ended up being 38-28. Australia scored a few late tries to make it more respectable. But I won't remember at one stage New Zealand were leading by a lot. So I suppose where do you rate Benji Marshall in that mix of great Kiwi halves? Didn't play for us either. But that's a chat for another day. It's not Sharks related.
Yeah, it's still that Benji, that coming out. I was a massive fan when he came out of Kebra Park. We talked about it before, Lats, when I said he was the future when he played that nines competition. Everyone was laughing. I said, you watch this kid as he comes out of high school to the 2005 grand final, to the 08 World Cup? The 08?
Yeah, 08.
Cup,
yeah.
Where he won on his own. He did it on his own shoulders. Like it's Benji.
04 Sevens, 04 World Sevens. I was there at the old Sydney Football Stadium, and he was 17-year-old Benji just absolutely carving up into the 05 grand final, into the 08 World Cup final.
Yeah, it's Benji for me.
Yeah, got to be Benji. He's got the premiership.
All right. Well, coming up, we've our Friday debrief after the Eels-Panthers match. If you haven't watched it yet, we've already put up a Cronulla Chronicles match of us against the Titans. Is there anything you want to comment on that video, Williams?
It's good fun. We were talking last week during the Sharknado episode, if you don't realise how good a team you have at the time until afterwards. This one, I thought winning 36-12 against the Gold Coast was one of the best things getting around back then. We hadn't won up there before until then. The Gold Coast, turns out they ended up being wooden spooners that year. They were prelim finalists the year before, so Boldo and I came to the conclusion it was Boldo's wise, astute observation that you don't realise how terrible the team is that you have until you look back at it and go, yeah, that was a game. Stapo scores 2 tries. Gallen scores 2 tries. Gardner scores 2 tries. There was one good try in there and a couple of good leaps by Stapo and a couple of barge overs by Gal, but it kind of papered over a lot of cracks. We weren't a good team during that era, that's for sure.
Fair enough. All right, then we'll be back next Tuesday with our regular show, probably with Boldo as host. Thanks very much, everyone, for hanging with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you missed the show. Drop some comments down below. Let us know your thoughts on the Sharks, how we're going, the season in general. Are we in for a good run to the finals, or are we in for some struggle streak? But all the best, and as always, guys, up, Cronulla.
For over 50 years, people have come to see the Sharks play. Talent, skill, speed, intelligence, elite-level athleticism. That's not these guys. Biased, one-eyed, opinionated, more often wrong than right. They make up for their complete lack of talent with pure dribble, gibberish, and enthusiasm. This is the ET Stand Podcast.